Welcome to Two Therapists Talking. The hope for this podcast is to talk about important issues related to couples and individuals who are struggling in their lives with many different issues. I'm David Thompson, a marriage and family therapist.
And I'm Sherry Christensen, marriage and family therapist. Please join us as we explore these issues together, and we hope you will learn and be enlightened along the way. Come find us at twotherapisttalking.com. If you like what you're hearing, please get on and rate us and subscribe to the podcast. Hi, and welcome back to Two Therapists Talking. I'm Sherry.
And I'm David.
And we are doing the second part of our values episodes. So last episode, we talked about why is it important to even have values or know what they are? Why is it important to recognize whether or not we're actually living the values that we aspire to or say that we have?
Right.
And what happens when we don't have values? What does that look like versus being a person that has values? And go back and listen to that. There's a lot of great stuff there to kind of recap the usually at some level, we're all not living our values the way that we think we are or the way that we believe that we want to be. And when we aren't, anytime that we aren't, our integrity is diminished, right? We're not actually what we say or think that we are.
And the point wasn't to beat you up about it.
Right, because we're all doing it at some level.
We're all doing it for sure. I talked about being less loving than I value being. The point is just to
be aware
and work towards that, because hopefully you're convinced now that it is where you want to be. You will feel the best living your values.
Yes, living that integritous life. The closer that you are to living your values and who you've decided that you want to be, the more that you will have contentment and peace, as opposed to discontent, separateness, depression, anxiety. A lot of those things come from that pain. So as we're talking about today, we said, hey, come back and we will talk about how do we even figure out what our values are? How do we live them better? So we're going to talk about that today.
So there's some questions that we put together just to help you to think about it a little bit differently. And so if you're taking notes or you want to take notes, this might be helpful. There's not a lot. However, this is an exercise that we will do to help people to figure this out. So we will ask people that we're working with to identify times that you are happiest. And so a lot of these questions are just ponder and reflect when you have a little bit of time. Examples from your career, your personal life. What were you doing? Who were you with? And what other factors were contributing to why you were happy? Whatever times you identify as times that you were happiest, why? What was going on? And so that's a good start. And really, with these questions, take some time to think about it, because this is your life. And as you arrive at these values, they 100% will be your values, and you will feel really good about this is it. This is actually who I am. Right.
So, for example, maybe that was in college, or when you were working hard, when you were accomplishing things. I was very happy in college. I had a lot of goals, educationally. I was working hard, which is a goal of mine. I love to learn. That learning and progression is a big goal of mine. So that was being accomplished. I love to move my body. I love fitness and exercise. I was doing that. I was on a tour team. And so I was doing that. I love culture. My tour team specifically I was on the international folk dance team. And so we were learning about all these different cultures and how they express themselves through dance and through movement. And so that just really filled a value of mine. And to be able to share that with others was a big deal. So
So
lots
right there,
of things.
we've teased out a lot of Sherry's values
Yes,
right there.
there you
as
go.
You can tell, right? So there's hard work, there's learning, there's experiencing new cultures,
things
new
and
people.
cultures.
So
Yeah.
that's the point exactly, is what is it that you know you value because of how you felt at certain times in your life. So that's exactly what we want you to think about.
Yes. So when has that happened for you?
Yep.
And it doesn't have to be the only time, right? Like college was not the only time I was
Right.
happy, right? But think back to, okay, when were times? And if you have multiple times, then that can give you multiple insights to different values that are important to you.
Right. And how they intersect. So that's a good start. And then
Step 2.
step 2, identify the times when you were most proud. And again, looking at your entire life, why were you proud? Did other people share your pride? Who? And then what other factors contributed to those feelings? And this is a good proud, by the way.
Right.
Sometimes it feels like in here we need to differentiate because it's almost like a bad word a little bit. But no, this is a good proud where you felt capable, where you felt
Yes.
accomplished, and things were paying off for you.
Yes. And that can be, I think a lot of people sort of instantly go back to like career things. When does that happen at work? Because
Right.
you tend to see a lot of those moments in work type of settings, but they don't have to just be applicable to work.
Right. Definitely not.
It can be having, like when I did a marathon, like that was like, wow, big accomplishment, right? Or, and that met a lot of my, again, it's that fitness goals, that doing hard things. That's a value of mine. That concept that I can do hard things and I'm willing to do hard things and put an effort there. Maybe it's the birth of a child or caring for, your babies.
Definitely on that topic. So I mentioned last episode, I value being loving. And when I'm unloving, it's very hard for me. So times that I'm proud are if my children are really struggling and I can say, hey, talk to me. Let me give you a foot rub.
Yes.
And just talk to me, and they de-escalate and they come down from this very upset, very emotional place and can share.
Yes.
I mean, I'm really proud of that.
Yes.
I need to do that more. So this is anything.
And look maybe for some of the more subtle moments like that, right?
Yes.
If you were to say, oh, what are the times you're most proud and accomplished the most? Oftentimes we don't look for some of these critically important and subtle moments.
Yeah, just positive interactions can be a time that you're most proud because something ended well versus in times past it did not go so well. So great examples.
Right. Okay, step 3 is similar. It's identifying times when you're most fulfilled and satisfied. So again, maybe work things, but maybe personal things. So a different nuance to it, but a similar concept. Looking at those times, what were the needs that you had or that other people had or desires that you or others had that you were fulfilling?
Yeah, and why was that experience so meaningful to you?
Right.
What was being accomplished? Were they feeling better? Were you learning about them? Did you de-escalate a situation and that made you feel better?
Yeah. Yeah, I think the foot rub with your kids is a really good example of that. You were fulfilling needs that they had, and they needed connection, they needed processing, they needed support.
Physical touch, yeah.
Physical touch, yes.
Although I'll just put a warning in here real quick. If you do this, get ready for them to want to have
to
their
do it
feet
all the
massaged
time.
all
Yes.
the time. And if you're just sitting there on the couch,
I'm
chances are
thinking
pretty
about
good.
that. I'm
I have a
like,
kid that's going
wow.
to say, hey, Dad, will you massage my feet? And it's like, oh, boy. Pandora's box. But it's a really good experience, definitely.
Yeah, just being able to talk. Yeah, my kids love being the last kid in bed that just hasn't plugged their phone in my room yet. And then they sort of work their way over to the bed and, want to sit and talk. And again, those moments are amazing and beautiful moments. And it's good to remember that when, like, I'm super tired, I just want you to go to bed.
Yeah. Oh boy.
But do I have that time and space to do that?
You'll see how easy it is to connect values to those experiences. Why were those experiences meaningful? And then it becomes very easy to say, oh, okay, so clearly I value being loving or listening and having empathy or being understanding or maybe helping them to problem solve or whatever. So this kind of leads into the next step here, which is to actually identify 10 values that you have. And if I were to give you a handout, there is a list of values, but you don't have to have the handout. You can actually just Google values or list of values and you'll see lots, because there's a lot. There's some really neat ones actually when you start looking this up, like creativity or curiosity or usefulness or enthusiasm. A lot of people, when they really think about this, say, you know what, I really value positivity.
Yes.
Great. That's awesome. So the next step is identify 10 or so values that are important to you, either a list that you look at online or if just off the top of your head. But you might need some help. And I think lists can be helpful because you find some on lists that really fit. Like for me, patriotism. I'm like, haha. Hey, I love it. That is a value of mine, but you don't hear that very often. Patriotism is a value. So,
and there's other ones that you wouldn't necessarily consider, or maybe you don't think are like, oh, this one is the most important thing. But I'm looking at kind of the list that we have in front of us, and fluency is one, or piety, or belonging, or even being the best, or being ambitious, right? There are so many values. Structure, ingenuity, just different things that you might not consider. So please pull up a list.
It can be helpful.
It is, even if just to look at it and see your different options and sometimes it helps you to look at it because you say, oh, wait, yeah, that's definitely not me. Right.
Right.
And so you can narrow things down that way, but it's really helpful to kind of look and see what values are out there.
Yeah. And you'll likely want all of these or value all of these to some extent. But again, we're trying to see what's the most important to you.
Yes.
And that's why, so we want you to identify 10, and then we want you to prioritize them down. And this is the next step.
Step 5.
Step 5. And one way to do this is to take 2 at a time and just look at them, compare them. And if you had to choose one of the 2, which one would you choose? And that sounds a little strange. And it's not like you're getting rid of that other value.
Right.
It doesn't mean you don't value that.
That's not a thing anymore.
Yeah, I don't have to be like that anymore. No. It doesn't mean that. We're just trying to narrow it down to the most important.
Your top 5.
Your top 5 is what we're after.
So, yeah, you can look at the first 2 and then, okay, which one's more important there?
Because sometimes there is a conflict in values, to be quite honest. Sometimes, I value success financially, but I also value time with my family. And I have a job offer that is going to pay me very well. And this actually happened for me. But I was going to be away a lot. And so all of a sudden I was trying to figure out, okay, wait, why do I feel a little unsettled? And I had to figure out, well, which one do I value more? Do I value the financial success, or do I value time?
And there's so much more to that, right? It may not necessarily be, financial, like there's other aspects to it. There's stability, there's prestige, there's being the best.
Which connects to other values.
Yes, all of those are values. Yep. And so the situation may involve several values on each side.
And it came down to, if I had to choose one, what would it be? And I turned it down, and I chose family and time. So, you'll see some of those situations. So it's helpful, but we want there to be a more clear 5. And it's okay if
Right.
there's like 4 or 6. That's okay.
But remember, because this is kind of that concept of, that we talked about a little bit last time of, if you have so many, then holy cow, is this, how are you going to 100% integrity live all of these? We want to, okay, what are your top 5, and really narrow that down and really get good at living those, and other things kind of fall into place, right? They start
Right.
falling into your life as you find what those key top ones are.
And you'll find that they change in time. I did this exercise with a teenager recently, and their values were very different from probably where they're going to be when they are an adult. So fun and friends and
Yes.
some of these things. Not that we don't value this as adults,
Right.
but they evolve. They
Yeah.
become something else, and that's
Shift.
totally fine. So just when you do this exercise, where are you at with your values? And they will change.
Yeah.
But we want kind of a really good starting point.
Yes. Make sure that you go through those, compare them, number them, list them out. I like the idea of putting them in numerical order. If I had to pick one, this would be my absolute
yeah.
top value. And this
Yep.
is my second, go down your list like that and get your top 5. And then we're going to go into step 6, which is reaffirming your values. Make sure that these are your top 5, and then compare that to how you're living your life in terms of your goals, your vision for how you want to be,
Right.
right? If your major goal for your life is to have that financial success, but you don't have that in your values anywhere, there's going to be some problems, right? So
Right.
making sure you're comparing that, and then connecting that to how do you feel about yourself if you're living that way.
In other words, you should look at this list and feel really good about it. If I were these things, I would consider myself a success, and I would be very happy. I would
Yeah.
be content.
Very happy and content. And then once you've done that, consider how proud you are of those. How, if someone else were to say, hey, what are your top 5 values? Would you feel comfortable sharing what you have with them?
Because sometimes people that you are sharing your values with, maybe parents, for example, that you admire, are there any values on that list that you would not feel very good about? Maybe be
Yeah.
embarrassed about, or maybe
Or your spouse or other people, your mentors. Are
that
there,
can help you to narrow it down.
yeah, are there values on there that you would say, I don't know if I want people to know that, like,
Maybe I don't want to share that one.
in my top one, my top one is that I want to be better than everybody else or something like that, right?
Yeah.
Like then, so is it going to fit what you want to accomplish in your life and what you see are connected with being the kind of person that you want to be?
And this next part is a real awakening, but a good one, an important one. Once these are identified, and we often have a chance to talk about them, now we need to look at behaviors or attitudes that are incongruent or not in harmony with these values. A real honest look where we've made this separation of human being and human doing. So I'm
Yes.
okay to recognize my faults or flaws or weaknesses without it meaning that I'm not a good person. That is not what it means at all. And so I'm able to back up and get some perspective and identify the things that just don't fit what I've said are my values. Which I think we really ought to be doing regularly.
Yes.
Because if I've been a real jerk at home, I really ought to be stepping back regularly and saying, okay, am I compassionate and kind? Do people want to be around me? Or am I getting home and everybody's splitting because, dad's home and it's going to be, what have you done wrong? And how come you haven't put that away? And are you doing your homework? And that's not, that's not going to be my top value is, good grades or how disciplined they are. My top value really is that they feel loved. So am I living congruently with that?
Yes. Which I think it goes without saying that hopefully that it doesn't mean that you never work on homework with them, never do those things, because that isn't actually loving either, right? But we have a balance, and that's where some of that hard work comes in being loving and living our values and things like that.
So this is like searching fearless moral inventory. What am I doing?
Yes, if you're familiar with the 12 steps.
That is incongruent with now what I clearly understand my values to be. There's no guesswork here. I've done the steps and I've really thought a lot about it, and this is my values.
Yes.
These are what I want to be.
So if honest is one of those, are you always honest? Where are the times when you kind of fudge a little bit or feel like it doesn't really matter?
Yeah. And all of this is going to help you to see you differently, which is the point, but in a good way, because again, going back to last episode, your highest and best self, your greatest fulfillment, your greatest satisfaction will be in living your values.
Right.
It will not be in pretending. It will not be in seeking something else. Even if you gain a lot of other things, at the end of the day, when the lights go down and you're in front of a mirror alone, you are not fooling anybody. And that's where you need to feel good.
Right.
And so knowing your values, understanding your values, I mean, how awesome will it be to, if somebody were to ask, just give it to them and you don't have to think about it. And you know who you are and what you want to be and what you're working towards. It's pretty great.
Yes. Yes, it is a very good feeling to be able to do that and have that and know that you are every day working to be a little closer to living that in its fullest.
Right. And you know, if this were like we were working with you, I might spend a little more time on what I call anti-values, or just values and motivations that go against your values. Almost sort of like a 7 deadly sins kind of thing, where there's lust and greed and gluttony and wrath or
sloth.
Sloth
Pride.
is a good one. You know, I value fitness, but I am lazy, for example. And that can be really helpful too, to break that down. But what we're trying to arrive at ultimately is, we talked a little bit about this. Now, how do I strengthen them? What do I do about it? And we ask clients to do a mission statement, kind of like an affirmation that they would add to their affirmations. I am big on affirmations. We ask the people we work with to do affirmations a lot. Not that affirmations alone are going to change everything, but it certainly helps to shift your thinking and your perspective, which we are all about. So a mission statement is something that you can write now based on your values for your life.
It's like your step 7 here.
Yeah, and I love mission statements, actually. One example that I like to use is from one of my all-time favorite movies, The Secret Life of Walter Mitty. What a great movie. So he worked at Life magazine, right? And their mission statement as a company was to see the world, things dangerous to come to see behind walls, draw closer, to find each other, and to feel. That is the purpose of life. I love that. And I think having some kind of mission statement for you based on your values will keep them in the forefront, help you to be aware of them, and in difficult decisions, help you to live your values. Because if you know what your values are and you are trying to decide between this or that, or do I stay or do I go? Well, one really good way to figure that out is compare it to your values. Go through your values and then look at the question again, and it will probably start to become pretty apparent the direction you need to go for you based on your values.
Right. And when you have that mission statement completed, then you, again, can create affirmations around that. For example, something that I've said to myself several times this week is, I'm a person who does yoga every day. I'm a person who meditates every day, because things have been really crazy this week. It's the end of my kids' mid-semester stuff, and so everything has to be turned in, and I'm working with all of them on all that, and things are really busy. And I get down to the end of the day, and I'm like, and I have to remind myself, like, I don't want to do all this stuff, right? Sometimes you just kind of want to put yourself, or at least I do. I tend to want to put myself on hold in order to take care of other people's needs, especially, well, mostly just my kids, right?
In other words, you're a mom. Yeah.
Yes, I'm a mom. And so at the end of the day, I'm a person who meditates every day. And once I say it, I can be up into that point. I can be, no, I'm not going to do this. I just like ignore it all and just go to bed, do what I need, But the second that I say, I'm a person who meditates every day, I remind myself, I'm a person who meditates every day. Oh, okay. I'm going to pull something up and do it. I'm a person who does yoga every day. Okay. Let me go through a couple of these sets of movements. What's going to be most beneficial for me? And I think this brings up another really important point, is that if we're doing those things and we're setting those values in our lives, there are going to be times when things get really busy or when things are hard, and either we're saying sorry because we're not being loving, or we're coming up against, well, now I have to decide, am I going to go to bed? Am I going to be a person who meditates every day? And
am I going to journal, or am I going to keep watching Netflix?
Yes, exactly. So it's helpful when you can come to a place and scale the goals and things that you value, the things that you value. So as we look at that step 7 of that mission statement, creating those mantras and those affirmations, then, what's the consistent effort you need to do every day to be that person, right? And how can you be that 1% better? How can you be that just a little bit better every day? And so sometimes that means your meditation is, okay, I'm going to do 3 deep breaths and a, 2-minute body scan, and that's what I have time for. But I've now lived that value, that I am a person who meditates every day, that meditation is important.
And that will feel really good.
And it does. It feels really good. It does. And as you have that then really ingrained in your life, that 1%, then you can do a next 1%, right? And you have that, I feel really good when I have done this little piece. And now I can tell that that's sort of in my skin now, and it's part of me. And so now my next level is, okay, I need to do maybe a little bit more here or a little more there. How can I be kind loving on the front end rather than the back end? Yes.
And I love this idea of, you have to approach this process like every other process. Loving kindness towards yourself, not judgment, not criticism, just acceptance. Be curious about where you are and why you are where you are and what you're doing, but not judgmental. This is not an opportunity to beat yourself up about not doing good enough, or you're not doing enough. That is not what this is. It's little scalable changes. That 1% will make a difference. And either way, the reality is, either way, you're still worth 100%. Either way, you are still lovable just as you are for who you are. And so kindness only in this process, because you'll find that you have a lot of values you're not very good at living. They really are your values. They're important to you. You just haven't done a good job of them. And that's okay.
Yeah.
We start small, and now that we're aware of it and we have an affirmation or a mission statement and we're putting that out there, I am someone who meditates. I am someone who is patient. I am someone who, you'll make those small changes, and that's what we're after, and you will feel really good doing it.
Yes. Have fun finding your values and living them a little bit more.
We hope that was helpful.
See you later. Thank you for listening to Two Therapists Talking. We look forward to sharing more conversations with you. Connect with us at twotherapisttalking.com or email podcast@twotherapisttalking.com. If you like what you're hearing, please get on and rate us and subscribe to the podcast.